Ladies and gentlemen, I was planning on making a video talking about the 7 or 6 most essential uniforms for veterans, but I got a couple of points into the video and I realized I actually wanted to make a different one. So this is the video we're making instead. These are the top 5 bait uniforms for everyone, but in my opinion, particularly for veterans. And what I mean by bait is essentially, I think these characters are potentially very good, potentially meta right now, but I think their time is running out. I think their time is running out because of MCU stuff. I think their time is running out just because of the way the game goes. Call it intuition, a gut feeling. I've just been covering this game for so long. Sometimes I look at characters and I just feel like, man, you're not going to be good for much longer, are you? And I don't know. 50-50, right? Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. It's sort of a coin flip. But I'd rather share this video with you guys and be wrong 100%, or maybe be right on one and save people on that one uniform than not make the video at all and then things happen differently. So we're actually going to kick off the list with Sharon Rogers. I know people are going to get in, they're going to get after me for the misogyny and stuff. I think this uniform is really cool looking. I think this uniform is really strong. But 2 reasons why I think this uniform is bait. The first one is that it didn't change anything for Sharon Rogers. And I want to make this distinction here, even though I know that the devs actually buffed this uniform. So they released this uniform and then people forget, but a couple weeks later they buffed it by making it even easier to play. And that was really cool at the time, but now thinking back on it, that strikes me as a little odd. Why were they so intent on making this uniform, so attractive, so appealing to players? And yeah, you could make the argument that they're trying to make it appealing because Sharon Rogers is not from the comics, even though she's she's a cool character, she's an OC, so she doesn't have as much history and pedigree as some of the, as her father, Captain America, Iron Man, etc. You can also make the argument from a meta perspective that the devs know that female blast heroes don't have as much value because they don't have ABX days, they don't have ABL days, yada, yada, yada. But no, for me, I feel like that along with the fact that they didn't try to change anything about her style at all, right? They didn't change anything about Sharon. They kept it exactly the same. It makes me feel like she is, I don't know what to call it, but sort of like a generic character now. And I feel like they're just going to keep cranking up her damage, which is cool. She's a huge damage stick, but I just feel like that's all she is. And damage sticks are the first, purely DPS characters are the first ones to get replaced because they don't have any other utility, right? And I would compare Sharon is sort of like the complete opposite of Jean. Not to say that Sharon is bad and Jean is good, but Jean has value everywhere, right? Every single game mode you could point to where Jean has value, even though, for example, World Boss, Jean has one of the lowest number of stages that she's available for. But Jean just has so much utility in her kit. Revive, Reflect, Healing, Iframe Ignored, Paralysis, Time Freezing, all this stuff. Sharon has what? Damage. That's it. I just need one word to explain Sharon, and that's all she has is damage. The second one that I want to highlight that I think is kind of a bait uniform right now is Green Goblin, believe it or not. And I actually originally had him on my list of most essential uniforms. I still think this is a really good uniform. I'm not saying it's a bad uniform. But the reason why I'm saying it's bait is because of 2 things. One, they sort of artificially inflated his value by putting him in this Sinister Six thing. Green Goblin is not in the Sinister Six, right? If you look at the comics, he's not really in the Sinister Six. He's more of Spider-Man's arch nemesis, but he stays separate from the Sinister Six most of the time. And so him being on this list is a little bit weird. Secondly, they nestle him in between 2 tier 4s, Dr. Octopus and Venom. Again, that just strikes me as odd. It seems like they're really trying to almost confuse players into thinking that he's like a pseudo tier 4. And really he's not, right? Really he's not. I know they gave him the Sinister Six tag. Okay, I know. But he's really not a tier 4. The second thing is, I think people are going to conflate his value as a leadership and support, which obviously is amazing, and his value for ABX with what the real value is, which is ABL. Now, don't get me wrong. The changes in rewards, the buffs to rewards to ABX are very good, but they're not nearly as good as the buffs to ABL. And even if Green Goblin, Red Goblin, gets a tier 4, there's no speed villain day for ABL. So let's not confuse his value here, right? At most, if you build Green Goblin to the absolute highest, right? And you stack him, you tier 4 him, whatever the case may be, the best that he's going to do for you is that he's going to be doing this 1 day of speed villain, and he's going to get you, at most, he's going to get you that chest At 15 million points, that gives you tier 3 materials. Now, if you're a veteran, you don't need these chests anymore, so it doesn't really matter. So unless they change the days, and unless they change the required characters for legend mode, the days of speed villains being so valuable are kind of past us, because now everyone's just looking at ABL and looking at, you know, alien villain, alien hero, you know, speed female. They're looking at those, blast mutant female. They're looking at those days so that they can try to push closer to 12 million, so they can get that 50 chest with Carbo or that 50 chest with Soul of the Faltine every single day. ABX is kind of taking a back seat to ABL, which is why I think this uniform is a little bit of a bait. Still an amazing uniform, but I do think is a little bait. Next one up here, Hela. I think this uniform is a little bait, essentially because at this point it's 2 years old. I didn't realize this at first, but it's a 2-year-old uniform. It's very, very old. Okay, that's the first one. Second one is, it's good for PvP, no doubt, but it's sort of only good for Otherworld Battle. So you really only have one game mode where it's really good for. And Hela needs, more so than the uniform, she needs the rest of her build to be very stacked. And don't get me wrong, I have a pretty good build for Hela. I got a Mighty Authority. I got now a 5-star artifact because I used it from the from an artifact selector that I had to choose a 5-star Hela. You know, it's got some moves here, right? But you need this, and this is actually more important than the uniform if she's actually going to make noise. The second thing related to the uniform and related to really where her value comes from is the increased damage to superheroes, right? And you take a look at the current state of the PvP meta. Besides Jean, most of the other PvP metas are heroes, right? You have, of course, Adam Warlock, who's a hero. You have Wolverine, who is a hero. You now have Ghost Rider, who is a hero. So I'm kind of scratching my head. I'm like, is the PvP meta going to get more hero focused? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? It's already so hero focused. You have Jean and then you have Hulk. They've already pushed Gore out of the PvP meta, right? There's just not that many. I'm not even talking about Spider-Man. He's still there, right? So more than 50% of the meta right now is in PvP is hero focused, and Hela's value is where it's at. If anything, I feel like the PvP meta is going to get more villain focused, which would only serve to lower Hela's value. Plus, this uniform is sort of self-devaluing in the sense that if she gets another uniform in the future, let's say, and the uniform makes her like really good for PvP, because she's actually not bad for PvP, right? She has counterattack, you know, she doesn't have ignore iframe, but you know, she's got some things. She's got the immortality, right? So if they make a uniform, let's say, and they keep this effect, but then they make the character, like the actual base kit Hela, much stronger, it adds another villain. Do you see what I mean? And then by adding another villain in, you're actually reducing the number of heroes, which then reduces the value of her uniform effect. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like she has to be bad and heroes have to be good for this uniform to really be that valuable. And then, again, you ask me, like, if I'm looking ahead of the future here, they've dropped a lot of new villain characters, right? We're waiting on villains like Apocalypse to get reworked uniforms and upgrades. We're waiting for characters like Doctor Doom to come back to the meta. We have all these native tier 3 villains who have never gotten uniforms. Kang, Null, Gore. What's going to happen, right? These are all, right? All of these guys, right? PvP focused, PvP focused, PvP focused, right? PvP focused. If he gets a uniform, guess who he's going to turn into? He's going to turn into Void. Guess who Void's going to be a villain, and he's going to be PvP focused. So I'm like, you know, the future of PvP is actually villain, not hero. So that's why I feel like, not to mention guys like this, that's why I feel like Hela's uniform right now is kind of bait. And then we come to Strife. Strife was actually another one of the characters that I was saying was essential, but upon further reflection and consideration, I actually think this uniform is bait. And the reason for that is essentially in the uniform's effect. They added a brand new effect to Strife that we have never seen before since Wasp. And that's a very important distinction to make. I know we've seen some glimpses of it with characters like Nico Minoru, Sister Grimm, but not as general as Wasps and not as strong as Wasps, right? So he gets the debuff effect to all allies, which means you have an option, you have an alternative to Wasp in things like Otherworld Battle, things like Alliance Conquest, right? Where you have multiple characters, whatever, you know, and you're doing that kind of stuff. Here's the issue here. Here's the issue for Strife. He's not quite strong enough, despite being strong, he's not quite strong enough to make that jump to be able to compete 1-on-1 or 3-on-3 with tier 4s. He's not quite there. He's close. With a lot of characters banned, yeah, but he's not quite there. What does that mean? That means that even though it's going to take a year or two or maybe more, he's going to get another uniform. He's going to get another uniform, and he's going to get a tier 4, and this artifact is going to go crazy because they gave him the same artifact as Adam. So this artifact is going to go nuts, and he's going to become a mega headache. And at that point, they're probably going to give him a new passive that gives him immortality or gives him a revive, and he's going to become a menace for PvP. But he's not there yet. He's not there yet. And last but not least, I want to talk about the White Fox uniform, specifically Lifestyles 2, which is the paywall uniform. Now, White Fox does have an alternative, which is Lifestyles 1, which is non-paywall. So that is something to consider. Now, for this one, I know that it is an upgrade over Lifestyle 1. So it's not a cash grab in the sense of being useless. It's not, you know, some sort of like minor upgrade. But I'm just sort of casually wondering, unless you are pushing the very upper echelons of PvE content, and in particular, unless you are pushing for really high ABL scores with someone like Luna Summer, White Fox can probably do most of what you want her to do with this uniform. So it's sort of like anti-FOMO. I'm basically saying that unless you are really pushing for the top, you don't really need this uniform. I would also say if you don't have Luna Summer, then you probably don't need White Fox Winter, because again, they go hand in hand. Now that Luna is available for the most days of ABX and ABL, Luna's value has just skyrocketed. She's the only speed hero female who can hit 12 million consistently, and you want to pair her with her best support, White Fox. So it's certainly a very good uniform. It certainly pairs super well with Luna, but for all of you that didn't get Luna or missed Luna for whatever reason, don't feel like you need to get White Fox now to catch up, because you know, you need the cart before you need the horse, aka Luna, before you buy the cart that the horse pulls, right? And just buying the cart with no horse isn't going to make as much sense. I feel like Strife and White Fox are the weakest ones, so that's why I left them at the end of this video, but it just sort of makes sense to me, and I know it's going to make sense to some players, so I wanted to talk about it. Anywho, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.